What are the signs of burnout that we should be watching out for?
Emotional fragility or irritability, that like emotional range. You're going from 0 to 900 in 1 second. Rage. I find that many of my clients are beating themselves up for their anger and misreading their anger as a sign of burnout. Thinking, oh, I'm just this horrible, angry mother. And you're not a horrible, angry mother. Rage is a symptom of burnout, as is sensitivity. And how could you not be sensitive to all of the stimulus that's happening in your house, the input? My dog just suddenly started whining in the same pitch that both of my kids whine.
No.
And it is enough to bring me to my knees in about 2 seconds. So that kind of sensitivity, also our emotional regulation or lack thereof, is a really big sign that presents itself in the parenting relationship. And needing your kids to do things in just this right way, feeling really controlling about that, is so often there's this part of you that's just desperate to have it be like that because you see any semblance of your own peace or your own care on the other side of that, like bedtime. But this can also happen with procrastination, that feeling of I have so much to do, I can't get anything done. It could be exhaustion. It could be you're hyperwired and you can't sleep. Burnout manifests in so many ways. But what is really important, and what I hope all of you take away from this conversation, is that those symptoms of burnout are just that, symptoms of burnout. Too often we experience them as weaknesses or moral failings or character flaws. And we regard their presence as evidence that we need to work harder, which only burns us out more and makes those symptoms act up even more. And if instead we can see, hey, these things start to happen, it's like it happens on a spectrum. I start to feel more uncomfortable, like more sensitive about the fabrics on my body. Then I start to feel really agitated by my kids' voices, not even whining, just when they're just talking all day long. Then I start to feel a lot of internal pressure around getting ready for school in the morning, getting them out the door, and also getting them ready for bed and getting them in bed. Those times where it's like, there is a time where they're going to be asleep or at school, and I just have to get them to it, that urgency. All of those are examples of burnout for me. And I put them on the spectrum of these are the lightest. Now we're getting more the urgency feeling. Now we're getting closer. Me getting really angry at my kids for just being the children that they are. Now we're getting closer, right, to this cliff of burnout. And when we start to see our symptoms in that way as on this spectrum, then we can notice, oh, hey, sensitive to noises, feeling touched out, feeling like the fabrics just don't work right on my body. This is a moment when my body is saying to me, I need something. I don't have to wait until my body's yelling. And in fact, better if I don't. I can pause right here and say, could I use an hour alone by myself? Honestly, it's like sometimes even just going to the grocery store, you're doing a thing for the family, but I'm by myself. I have my own bodily autonomy. I'm listening to a podcast. Maybe I'm going to get a cup of coffee, something like that. That's not this huge vacation from your life, but a marked container where you're taking your needs into consideration. And you're also saying to yourself, I hear you. You're overwhelmed. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? It's relatively neutral. You have a lot on your plate. And if I can take the time to turn towards myself in this moment, I don't have to get to the point where I'm threatening my kids that I'm going to throw off their toys in a trash bag and leave them out on the curb or something horrible that I don't want to do. I can care for myself in this moment before things escalate to this point of extreme exhaustion, getting sick, blowing up, picking a huge fight with my spouse, all of these ways that we're trying to say to ourselves, hey, I need help. Can you pay attention to me?
Yeah, yeah. And your nervous system is just, it takes just this tiny little bit at that point to push your nervous system over
Yeah.
into losing that. That strikes such a chord with me because I coach people in the mindful parenting membership, and they oftentimes, I get parents who are like, they're experiencing those things. They're experiencing sensitivity, lack of emotional regulation, wanting to control their kids. They're seeing it as there's something wrong with me. I need to work harder. There's something more. And I see that a lot. And I say, okay, we can talk about how to talk to your kids, but that's going to be useless. That's going to be
Hmm.
useless right now until we talk about what kind of support is in your life. Like, where can you take a break in your life? Like, how can you, by hook or by crook, find some ways? Can we brainstorm 10 different ways for you to get half an hour a day to yourself multiple times a week? Because anything we talk about with communication or how to stop yelling and all of those things are going to be useless if we're so burnt out that there's nothing to add on to there. Often I think sometimes it really takes somebody else seeing you and saying, oh, this is what's happening. And hopefully maybe this conversation can be that wake up call for some of us, right? To say, oh, that might be me. That could be me. Maybe I should have my partner listen to this conversation because that kind of sounds like me, right? To even see it, because we're so locked in that way of, I don't know, that self blame, right? I think that's really
Yeah.
pervasive.